GamingBolt presents 15 times you accidentally made games easier. Challenging video games aren't a new phenomenon. Some of us appreciate a challenge, even if it means repeating a section over and over and over again. However, it's not odd for an experience to get easier the more times we die. That's because some games employ dynamic difficulty to help a player along, even if they don't know it. What are a few occasions where you might have unintentionally made the game easier? Well, let's take a look at 15 such games where that could have happened. Crash Bandicoot 1. For all the flack that Crash Bandicoot gets about its difficulty, Naughty Dog weren't complete sadists. If you die too many times, the game will begin removing environmental hazards and shifting checkpoints near obstacles to tip the scales in your favor. Bizarre? Sure, but it's the least egregious way to ensure players keep progressing. Global Conquest. Strategy game Global Conquest doesn't actually see the game's AI becoming easier the worse that you perform. That's because it's a multiplayer game and it dynamically adjusts difficulty with random events instead. If you're in first place, don't expect to ever get lucky, but the player in last place will see the odds favoring them a lot more. With 4 players, the balance never gets completely skewed towards a particular side, but it is interesting to think of the ways that a skilled player could exploit this. Resident Evil 4. So you've died for the umpteenth time in a particular sequence. Suddenly, more ammo and health items start dropping. Your foes seem to be less in number and significantly dumber. Luck? Well, no, that's just Resident Evil having your back. For example, the water hall in the castle will have 9 cultists waiting to kill you if you're performing well. Die enough times and suddenly there are 7 cultists and the snipers above have disappeared. It's a clever touch overall and offers a bit of mastery for those who replay the title. Kid Icarus Uprising. The more you die in Kid Icarus Uprising, the more the game will lower the game's difficulty. However, the weapons the player finds in the level will vary according to the difficulty the game's engine decides. Taking too much damage scales the difficulty back down unless you are at a 2 or below. Left 4 Dead. Valve's co-op shooter employs an AI director that's about more narrative-focused experiences. However, it's not above making things tougher if you're doing well. If you're not dying enough and expending ammunition, expect the horde to close in more often. Of course, you can also choose a difficulty to play on, affecting how much damage the infected do to you. Mario Kart. The Mario Kart series is as well known for its amazing gameplay as it is for ruining friendships. That's mostly due to items being distributed based on one's position in the race. The farther you fall behind, the better the items, including the blue shell, which immediately targets the player in first place. Meanwhile, players in the top 3 will get relatively less powerful items. You could argue that skill level is an important factor and that falling in last isn't making the race easier, whether playing with friends or AI, but it could turn the tides for an above-average racer, especially for the series' total score points. Homeworld series. What better feeling was there in Homeworld than capturing ships and bolstering your army? Of course, you were making the game harder since it scaled the enemy fleet in response. The hilarity is that your fleet could still be obscenely powerful. In Homeworld 2, however, the scaling is a lot tougher and capturing ships is less viable. So if you end up taking heavy losses before the next mission, don't worry. It'll become much, much easier as a result. Heck, retire your fleet and start from anew in the next mission to see for yourself. Fallout 3. Bethesda's Fallout 3 sports difficulty levels, which carried over into later titles. This grants more experience throughout various activities, but conversely, enemies will get tougher. So if you decided to stick to the regular difficulty, then the game as a whole becomes a lot easier. Granted, you may not level up so quickly, but it's a small consequence to pay. Final Fantasy VIII. Fun fact, grinding in Final Fantasy VIII can screw you over big time. That's because the levels of enemies depend on your party's average level. Furthermore, some bosses will gain tons more HP, but the player's damage output won't increase in proportion to the levels gained. Taking care of your junctions is important in these cases, but make no mistake, try to overlevel and the game will raise the challenge accordingly. Snatcher. Hideo Kojima's cyberpunk visual novel has a few shooting sequences, showcasing the unorthodox design nature that the man would be known for. However, those sequences were made difficult in the most bizarre ways possible. There's a shooting range in-game, and if you obtain high scores continuously, the actual shooting sequences become tougher. In this way, shooting scenes can be either made extremely tough or a breeze. Oh, Kojima, trolling us in the past as well. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. Who would have thought that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, had so many different factors determining its difficulty? The number of enemies can change if more players are in-game. However, it also depends on whether any lives were lost in a level, thus making the next have more enemies. Dying will reset the increased enemy count, but if you manage to reach bosses like the Shredder without failing once, they'll have increased health. Forza Motorsport 4. In Forza Motorsport 4, it may seem obvious that races against the AI become tougher as you progress in World Tour. However, all cars are on the same level in terms of class and upgrades, so what gives? Forza Motorsport 4 has over 20 AI difficulty levels running behind the scenes, and in World Tour, it shifts between these depending on your performance. Described as a rolling average across multiple events, the AI difficulty will change based on how well you race throughout. Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. Sometimes dynamic difficulty is extremely straightforward in that it makes the enemy AI easier to deal with. Take Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. Lose a whole bunch and the game will steadily reduce enemy intelligence until you win. Fun fact, even Dark Khan, the final boss, follows this rule of AI downgrading. Mega Man Zero Series. Ever lamented your performance in the Mega Man Zero series not quite hitting A or S rank consistently? Practice makes perfect, but it's somewhat of a good thing. When fighting bosses at these ranks, they'll unleash their special attacks, which can be fairly devastating. The upside is that Zero gains those special attacks upon defeating the boss. Mega Man Zero 4 is an interesting twist, in that you can make the fight more difficult by choosing the boss's favorite weather to unleash their special attacks. Some will still use the same if you have A or S rank though. Max Payne. Max Payne's dynamic difficulty tends to overdo things at times. Perform well consistently, and not only will enemies deal more damage and fight smarter, but they may require more than one headshot to die. Similarly, dying a lot will see their intelligence, accuracy, and health reduced. Max Payne will limit the difficulty based on the mode chosen, with dead on arrival keeping it extremely tough at all times. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.